Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Last week I received an email from a member of our synagogue who was upset, and they'd received another message from a friend. We're receiving so many messages these days from so many places and articles, and the message was from an article written by a young Jewish person whom they knew, who was decrying Israel's actions in Gaza and saying, well, what does this have to do with Judaism, in the article? And it is true that in times of difficulty for our people, for us, it makes us think, well, what are we about? What do we stand for? What are the values of our religion about? What are the values of our people? So of all the parshiot in the Torah, this is probably the one where you find foundationally, what are we, the Jewish people, about? Who are we? As we read about the call of God to the first Jew, Avraham Ha'ivri, Abraham, the Hebrew, the patriarch. And first, what becomes clear if you see the story of Abraham this week and next week is Abraham is a person of immense love and compassion. We say his tent was open on all sides. And that's not just the Midrash making it up. In the Torah, you read his stories, and you see that in action in so many different places. When strangers come to visit, he rushes out to greet them, to tend to their every need, to take care of them with an incredible open heart, as we too Jews try to do to all guests who come to us. And when God says, I'm going to destroy the evil cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham again steps up and says, well, God, how could you do this? What if there are 50 righteous people, 25, 15? Because Abraham is a person of love, God can't refuse Abraham. He just can't say no. He says, okay, well, if there is not 15 people, then I can't refuse you. And again, when Sarah, his wife, seeing that his eldest Yishmael is not treating Isaac properly, and Sarah tells Abraham, we have to send Ishmael away. Abraham says, no, I won't do this. This is not who I am. And it has to be God who suddenly appears to Abraham and says, listen to your wife. And so this is the reason why in Kabbalah, Abraham is pure chesed, pure loving kindness. This is what he's related to, in his story is a foundation of our religion, of morals and ethics and justice. And then you can take it to an even more, this is a philosophical, spiritual level. But really, what is Abraham's biggest contribution, what starts it all? So we call monotheism. And so what does it mean also that his tent was open on all sides? It was also that he had a wide open vision of the world, just a wide open, expansive vision. Maybe it started from that place of love and compassion for all, but that's how we saw everything. And that somehow led him to one day where he had some experience of the one God. But the Midrash tries to understand it, how did this happen? But this became such a powerful insight to Abraham that he carried with him, that he had to leave his father's house because his father did not share this belief and threw him out. And so this vision of Abraham, of this oneness, the Midrash says, well, how did he come to experience this oneness? So well, maybe he was looking up at the stars and the sky and just trying to understand the broad universe. But we call this monotheism because we like to categorize in religious, intellectual thought. But this wasn't an intellectual thought, the one that Abraham said, oh, there is one God. It was an experience that there's something that links everything together, that all of creation is part of one whole. There's one God that animates everything. And really, this is what gave Abraham's religion the power that it did, because he was connecting to everything. And he not only preached this vision, and he gave it to his family, and he gave it to his followers, but he also walked a walk. And this is what we read in the Torah. He walked a walk, and in so many different areas, he expressed this vision of oneness, in acts of faith and acts of truth, and as mentioned earlier. And this is really the foundation of our religion, that experience of the oneness of everything. And so, after this essential foundation of Judaism was started by Abraham and taken throughout all of the families, the focus of all the practices was connecting to this oneness. It becomes enshrined hundreds of years later by Moses, who's standing on the edges of the promised land, talking to the people in the words that probably most Jews know from our prayers: Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. And the rabbis understood this is maybe the essence of the whole speech that Moses gave to the people about the oneness. And so this idea that everything is connected, something that we speak, we're supposed to think about, connect to when we wake up and when we go to sleep, our most powerful prayer. It's what we say when we bring the Torahs out of our ark, feeling we're standing in Moses. We also invoke the oneness. So we're supposed to say just before we pass away, what our martyrs said going to their deaths. And the Shema is about God's oneness, but it's also about what is this God that Abraham discovered and that Moses rediscovered. And so the word, it says the Yud He Vav He Adonai is our God. We don't know how to pronounce this name any longer, but the Kabbalists, they reorganize this name, Yud He Vav He. They know it's from the verb to be. And they say it's the same thing as Havaya. Havaya is from the same verb. And Havaya just means existence and being. That somehow God encompasses all of existence, the substratum of everything, tying everything together. And that this is what we're supposed to love with all our heart, mind, and soul, this unity of all of life. And that love is how we then go back and re-experience that oneness and unity of Abraham. And so what does that mean? It means that when we take this experience back, it becomes that central command of the Torah to love your neighbor as yourself, right? Because if everything is one, then you have to love all human beings. You love all human beings, you protect all human beings, because they're all part of our own self, because we are all share the same unity. Everyone is literally ourself. And you should love the stranger because there are no strangers. We're all one. So the Shema becomes a way to reconnecting to the idea in a very challenging world sometimes of everything that happens in it. From the multiplicity, we try and connect back to the one through saying the Shema again and again, and trying to love with all our heart, mind, and soul, even within our broken world. And this is what it means to be followers of Abraham, that we try and seek that oneness, and we try and see the innate divinity in all people and all things, and carrying that loving kindness and that open tent. And what a beautiful way that is of walking in the world. And maybe why Jews are at the forefront of so many movements to bring that to the world. And this is what it means to be Jewish, to see all other selves as part of ourself. What we've been striving towards for millennia and still strive and fight for. And yet, even though Abraham had this vision of oneness, he also knows that there are times in the world of duality when you can't just simply think everything is one. You have to recognize there's evil in this world and do what is necessary to vanquish it. And therefore, it's in our parsha, again, everything correlates somehow. The Torah tells us that when Abraham's cousin and his family are taken as hostages in a war, that same Abraham immediately gathers his household, his friends, his allies, and he heads out to war, to freedom. And he does his duty to his family, which is to go and save Lot. And that's what he needed to do at that moment. And so as the followers of Abraham, we hold on to that vision of oneness in our hearts. And we're also ready to fight against evil when it rears its ugly head. As we at the same time remember, just as Abraham did, to also argue with God. What if there are 50 righteous people? What if there are 25? What if there are 15? And to fight for the life of every righteous person that we can, because that's our core value. And in times of distress, we become forced to turn back to who we really are and to remember who we really are, to that vision of oneness that evokes a love in us for human beings and for the cause of all those who are needy, who need us to be there with them. As we walk in the footsteps of Abraham, our father, yet also fighting evil, trying to save every righteous life. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We turn to